evening, everyone,
Good.
and welcome to the continuation of the discussion on the foundational texts of Indian philosophy. This meeting will be recorded and it will be posted on YouTube. So if you have missed any of the previous discussions, you may find it on YouTube. Also, there will be a question and answer session at the end of the discussions. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. If you please use the raise hand feature also in order to maintain the queue. And if you are not speaking, please mute yourselves in order to minimize the disturbances. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. Good evening. Namaskar. Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avatara varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. We are again discussing this very interesting system of Vedanta, that is Dvaita philosophy, dualism. So when we study the dualistic philosophy, it also will help us to understand the deeper aspects of Advaita. So that's a very important principle. To get a clear understanding of Advaita, it may be helpful if we also get a clear understanding of Dvaita philosophy. One important point is the Advaitins do not consider Dvaita philosophy as something essentially wrong. They only consider it as just a partial statement, not the whole truth. In our evolution in spiritual life, we have to go through Visishtadvaita, beginning with Dvaita, through Visishtadvaita, towards Advaita. All these three systems, they are based on the basis is Prasthanatraya. That is the Upanishads, the Sruti Prasthana, the triple foundations, the Sruti Prasthana and then the Bhagavad Gita, the Smriti Prasthana and Badrayana Sutra, the Nyaya Prasthana. And of course there are distinctions with regard to Paramarthika, Vyavaharika, states, transcendental and empirical, interpretation of scriptures, and more importantly, one area of contention is the concept of mithya or avidya, maya. I will try to explain this. So I already mentioned this, the fundamental thesis of Shankaracharya Advaita is Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Brahma Satyam is not so much debated about, but Jagat Mithya is a hot topic of debate among these different dialecticians. And unfortunately, it is wrongly understood, wrongly misinterpreted, even by great saintly teachers like Ramanuja and Madhva. So leave alone others. So what are some of these common misunderstandings about mithya? This is what we are going to focus today. Once that is clear, we will get a clear understanding as to why the non-Advaitic scholars, philosophers like Ramanuja and Madhva have a strong word of criticism against mithya. Now, to be very frank in one word, what is mithya? Again, you have to remember the simple English literal translation that you find in most books is Brahman is the reality, is real, the world is unreal. And sometimes more dangerously, the world is a dream, the world is an illusion. This is how it is translated into English, and even within in Indian subcontinent, even they translate this into the vernacular, they translate like this. Now, what's the real meaning of mithya? So one way to understand mithya is bhasamanatve sati asatvam. It is not absolutely non-existent. It is not absolutely unreal. Why? Bhasamanatve. sati. Even we think it is there, it is seen and experienced, still asatvam, it is not absolutely real. It is not absolute existence. So you are experiencing it, you are part of it, you are dealing with it, you are within it, but still you realize that it is different from the absolute reality, or it is not the absolute reality. Now, to get a clearer understanding, does Advaita tell you that our discussion, our meeting, our Zoom meeting, the hall, the mic system, all these are unreal? All these are non-existent? No, Shankaracharya never said that. In fact, in the Brahmasutra Bhashya, there are long passages where Shankara asserts, he is emphasizing that these things we experience, so they cannot be absolutely unreal. As one school of Bauddhas, called the Vijnanavadins, they assert that what you experience empirically are unreal. That's actually one view of the school of Mahayana Buddhists. That Mahayana Buddhism developed two schools of realism. One is two schools of idealism. Mahayana Buddhism developed two schools of idealism. One is Shunyavada, the other is Vijnanavada. Vijnanavada can be sometimes roughly equated, only roughly equated with subjective idealism. So there is a fringe group of Vijnanavadins, later Vijnanavadins called Pravritti Vijnanavada. They asserted that these empirical objects are all unreal. But Advaita does not say that. And there are statements even in the Brahmasutra Bhashya, Shankaracharya asserts that dream objects are not absolutely unreal, because upalabdhehe, we are experiencing it, they exist. Now coming to subject, what is mithyatvam? So first of all, there is one important statement from the great commentator Shankara. Prak Brahmatma Vijnanat Sarva Loka Vyavaharanam, sometimes in some places Sarva Vyavaharanam Satyattu Upapattihi. Prak Brahmatma Vijnanat Sarva Vyavaharanam or Sarva Loka Vyavaharanam Satyattu Upapattihi. Till you get the highest Brahmajnanam, knowledge of Brahman, the experience of the Paramarthika Satta, up to that point, whatever you experience is real only up to the point when you realize, and again realization means a matter of inner experience. As part of our own spiritual evolution, we get this immediate experience that all these things are real only in a very relative sense, not in an absolute sense, which is called Vyavaharika Satta. For all the Vyavahara, all these empirical, common sense realities, they are there. We are all discussing. There is the bay, there is the Golden Gate Bridge, there is the Pacific Ocean. All these things are there. But they are not Triganatita. They don't exist in the past, present and future without any change. They are within time. I mean, they are Trikala Adhina, not Trikala Atita. Because after 2 hours, this car will not be moving. After 1 minute, this car will not be moving in the street. Another car will be moving. So the same thing doesn't remain in the past, present and future without a change. So such an experience, such an object, that is this world, this empirical world, which consists of all these objects, is only a vyavaharika satta. It exists, this jagat exists only at the empirical level. It's only relative reality. But beyond all this, there is something which we can only experience, which we cannot see, which we cannot define, which is beyond the different tools of epistemology. Those things, either pratyaksha, anumana, upamana, sabda, arthavatya, anavalabdhi, all these things. Neither pratyaksha, nor anumana, nor upamana, nor sabda, nor arthavati, anavalabdhi, all the 6 pramanas are accepted by Vedantins. 5 pramanas are accepted by Prabhagaras, and 6 pramanas are again accepted by the Bhattas, this is Mimamsa philosophy. So, these pramanas will not be able to define or understand the paramarthika satta, that is trikala atida, that is the transcendental, the absolute reality which goes beyond time, space and causation. That is the absolute. This is only relative. Then there is something else, pratibhasika satta. Pratibhasika satta is a reality. Well, it is there, it is true only when we are looking at it, not other times. When you look at this rope, you mistake the rope for a snake. Before you brought light, you thought it is a snake. The snake exists only when you are looking at it, and when you mistake it for a snake. But when you bring light, it is gone. In other words, pratibhasika is cancelled by vyavaharika, and vyavaharika is cancelled by paramarthika. Now, in other words, Advaitic concept of reality is pure common sense. Now one may ask this question, why this great misunderstanding got so much of acceptance among scholars and in Indian thought systems? Of course, there is one reason I gave. Ramanuja himself was somewhat, he was upset, he was very much disturbed when Yadav Prakasha was explaining to him one statement in the Chandogya, which the sensitive young man who was a devotee, he thought that the Lord's eyes, the Lord cannot be compared to something that is senior. There is a comparison problem which I don't want to refer to. In the Chandogya, with Yadav Prakasha was explaining one portion from Shankara Bhashya, and Ramanuja got disturbed. So immediately, but Ramanuja could have straight away gone to Kanchi Mother's Temple or maybe the Vishnu Temple, and somebody would have told him that, don't worry, the great Shankaracharya came to this temple 500 years ago, 400 years ago, and he wrote a wonderful, beautiful devotional poem. So the real Shankara Vedanta or Dvaita doesn't contradict or condemn or belittle or look down on bhakti. Somebody could have told him, but there was no chance, and he went, and from there he went to other places. Anyway, that's a different story. So also Madhvacharya was listening to a great lesson from Ishtasiddhi, Vimuktatman's Ishtasiddhi, one of the later works belonging to post-Shankarite period, which is perhaps he did not like the way it was explained as a revolt to this exposition of Advaita as mentioned in Vimuktatman's Ishtasiddhi. Madhvacharya revolted and he started a movement called Dvaita Siddhanta. That's a different story. But something else is an important reason we have to discuss now. In the 15th and 16th century, 15th, 16th both together, there was a great scholar, his name is Prakashananda. One should not mistake or confuse Prakashananda with Prakashatmayeti. Prakashatmayeti was an earlier and far greater scholar and philosopher who wrote Panchapadika Vivarana, Panchapadika is a book. It's a very important book in the Vivarana Prasthana by Padmapada, based on Shankaracharya's Brahmasutra Bhashya. And then Prakasa Medi, who came later, who was a follower of Padmapada, wrote a commentary which is known as Panchapadika Vivarana, Prakasa Medi. But that was maybe around 12th, 13th century. But there was another scholar who appeared much later, and this is a very important movement in Vedanta. His name was Prakashananda. Prakashananda wrote a well-known book called Vedanta Siddhanta Muktavali. It's a well-known book written by Prakashananda in the 15th, 16th century. The name of the book is Vedanta Siddhanta Muktavali. In that book, he expounded a very interesting, in a way very funny actually, doctrine, which is an important doctrine in Advaita. It is known as Drishti Srishtivada. Drishti means you pursue, you see. Srishti means creation. You know what it means? Creation exists only so long as there is perception. So long as you see this world, the world exists, not otherwise. So creation can exist only as long as there is perception. This world is only a mental construction, and it exists only in mind. He also believed in Eka Jivavada. Now remember, Shankaracharya did not say this. But you find similar ideas in some earlier books, Yoga Vasishtha and other books, Ashtavakra, etc. So if somebody tells you that Advaita teaches you that the world exists only in your mind, kindly understand that Shankaracharya is totally free from that. This is something that you can never accuse Shankaracharya of. He is innocent of this. This is a doctrine that came into existence in the 15th, 16th century, which means almost 700 years after Shankara's time, 750 years. So what is Drishti Srishtivada? Drishti Srishtivada means the theory, the doctrine that Srishti means creation, exists only as long as there is Drishti. Creation exists only as long as you perceive it, you experience it. If you don't experience it, it doesn't exist so far as you are concerned. Now, so far as you are concerned can be understood. But if you don't see it, it never exists. Now, there is a reason why this poor man, Prakashananda, brought out this theory which created a lot of confusion. And it continues to create confusion in modern world. Especially thanks to the vigorous and totally non-authentic writings of some of the modern scholars, in both Indian and also Western scholars. So the reason why Prakashananda brought out this theory was this. Before Prakashananda, some scholars, mostly Dvaita scholars, in their writings, the highly polemical, dialectical writings, they started arguing, well, Vedanta tells you that because of Maya, because of avidya, because of ignorance, you are not able to really understand your own Sarupa, your own true nature, you are Brahman. So that means there is such a thing as Maya. Because it is due to Maya only, you are not able to understand your Sarupa. So Maya should be there. So Maya should be an ontological reality, just like Brahman. So these sorts of arguments, you can find those arguments in the works of Madhvacharya, in the works of Vedanta Desika, and also in the works of Jayatirtha. Remember, in the Dvaita tradition, they have this Munitrayam, the three great writers. There were many, but three of them were the greatest. The greatest, of course, Madhvacharya, and then He was called Kalpa Vriksha. The next greatest was Jayatirtha, who was the great commentator who wrote the commentaries on Madhvacharya's books. And also he wrote very with Nyaya Sudha and other books he wrote. He was a great writer, a great polemical writer and dialectician. And then the author of Nyayamrutam, the most important dialectical magnum opus of Dvaita tradition, it was written by Vyasatirtha. So these three constitute what we call Munitrayam in Dvaita tradition, Dvaita Siddhanta. Madhvacharya, Jayatirtha, who is a commentator, and Vyasatirtha. Now, what really happened was, from in the 13th and 14th centuries, early 15th centuries also, number of books were written in the Madhva tradition, which tried to project the idea that Advaita accepts two ontological realities. One is Brahman, the other is Maya. So now Prakashananda, he felt is called upon to defend Advaita. So what he did, he said Maya is, of course, Maya is the cause of Brahman appearing to have become this world. You don't realize Brahman, what is actually not different from Brahman, you understand as the Nama Rupa Prapancham, this world of names and forms. So you think that is a reality because of Maya, because of ignorance. And this Maya is Anirvachaniya also. Mahadbhuta Anirvachaniya Rupa, Vivekachudamani also defines it. So in order to save, in his own, according to him, in order to save Advaita from this alleged dualism, he said the world really doesn't exist. Because the world experience is caused by Maya. So Maya also doesn't really exist. And so what is the product of Maya also doesn't exist, the Jagat or the world. Now remember, and in fact in the Vedanta Siddhanta Muktavali, here is Vedanta Sara Sarvaswam Ajneyam Adhunatanaihi Aseshena Mayoktam Tat Purushottama Yatnataka. See, he seems to have a high opinion about his own contribution to Vedanta, Prakashananda. Prakashananda claimed that he is the first exponent of Drishti Srishtivada. Drishti Srishtivada can be found in its different forms in the Yoga Vasishta, and also a few other books you can find the traces of it, mostly in the Yoga Vasishta. So, in other words, according to this Drishtistivada, Vyavahari and Pradibhasiga are actually is modifications of perception because of ajnana. Really speaking, this external world doesn't exist. The question arises. Again, you have to remember the statement, Sarva Loka Vyavaharanam Satyatuvapattihi. Prag Brahmatma Vijnanath Sarva Loka Vyavaharanam Satyatuvapattihi. This is Shankaracharya's statement. Till you realize, till you attain the highest Advaitic experience, the world is real for you. And also he says, Bhashikara says, Yadha Swapna Drishtasya Iva Prag Prabodhat. Before you wake up, you are dreaming. Dream objects are real within dream experience. The unreality is perceived only when you come out of dream. Now, all this created a lot of confusion in the Dvaita circles. So, how does Dvaitin, the great Dvaitin writer, Jayatirtha, deal with this problem? One of the most well-known books in the Dvaita tradition belonging to post-Madhva period is Nyaya Sudha. Jayatirtha writes it. So he actually brings this Madhvacharya's real position with regard to Mithyatvam, the concept of Mithyatvam. So he says, we cannot really attribute the condition of bondage and all other problems due to the familiar causes of kama, karma, etc. Because this karma and all these bondages, previous karmas, they do have a beginning. But this bondage, which is called avidya or mithya or maya, appears to be beginningless. We don't know when we started mistaking the rope for a snake. We don't know when the snake went away. There is no answer to it. It is beginningless, but it has an end. It is anadi, but it is santa. So, nacha ajnana matra nibandhanoyam bandho jivasya sudhi smriti itihasa puranadishu parameshwara ichha nimittatva avagamat jnanananda swarupo hyayam jivaha tadbhavanupalabdhischa anubhava prasiddha tena avagamyade asti kimapi avaragam yena avrudaha swaprakasha chaitanya rupo api na atmanagastvam veda nacha kama karmadhikameva tatha bhavidam arhati tasyapi sadhanaha karanapekshitvat. So, if somebody tells you, for example, that we got bondage, we are not able to realize the truth of Brahman because of bandha, because of bondage, and bondage is caused by kama, karma, etc. Then for that also there should be somebody. Somebody should be there to direct. Again, it is an attempt to create a God who is closely involved in our destiny. Very similar to many of the Abrahamic traditions, Madhvacharya system. Madhvacharya argues that if you have a bondage for ignorance, if we are not able to realize our true swarupa, our true nature, we can say it is due to avidya, kama, karma, etc. Avidya means ignorance of our true nature, kama means desires which pollute our mind, and also karmas which produce samskaras, vasanas, sankalpas which actually color our mind. Therefore, we are not able to realize our own swarupa. But according to Madhvacharya, there should be somebody responsible to put this mechanism and to cause the mechanism to function, to put this mechanism in place at some point of time. And there should be a supreme intelligence. And the supreme intelligence, by his power, has caused all these problems. So you can come, that's what is coming to. Nacha purva purvasmad uttarottaramiti yuktam supti pralayoho tadbhutya bhavena nishkalanga chaitanya pelad surubhavbhasa prasaktehi ataha kama karma adiriktam maya vidya pragityadi shabda abhidheyam anadeva kimapi dravyam avaragam angikaryam. So Madhvacharya says there should be somebody, there must be something above, some higher power beyond and above our actions and desires, who must have cast a veil of ignorance. And that's the reason, that's the cause for bondage. And then this can be identified with what we normally call Shastras, talk about Maya, Avidya, Prakriti, etc., which obscure the real Atman. But it's all put in place by somebody, some higher power who is beyond all this. But then it's against Ataha Parameshwara Eva Swadhinaya Prakritya Sattvadiguna Vidya Virodhitvena Avidyaya Achintya Anubhutaya Susaktya Cha Jivasya Supragashamapi Srupa Chaitanyam Achadedi Iti Yuktam. This is very important. This is from Jayatirtha in his Nyayamudha. What it says is, so this Maya or Prakriti is only an insentient principle. It's Jada. So it cannot function. There will be somebody, some higher power. We are forced to accept the position that ultimately there is a God who himself is responsible for obscuring, for concealing the truth from us. And then this above mentioned principle of Prakriti, it consists of three gunas, but Prakriti itself is within the control of that God. And that's how we are all taken away from our own spiritual nature. We are not able to realize our own real Swarupa, our own true spiritual identity. This is Jayatirtha. What it means is, so when Advaitins say Maya is responsible, Advaitins do not say that this Maya is deliberately put in place by a God consciously, just to create an obstacle in a spiritual journey, so that you will be forced to accept, and you will be able to completely accept that the grace of God alone can take you to your highest spiritual destination. Advaitins say no. If you practice Karma Yoga and slowly you get established in Karma Nishtha, what happens is our mind becomes pure. Karma Nishthayaha Chitta Suddhidvarena Purusharthakedutvam Na Swatantrena Jnana Nishtadu Swatantrena Purusharthakedugu Anyana Beksha. The Bhashikara says, Gita Bhashya. So far as Madhvacharya is concerned, you cannot get out of this trap of bondage, because God has put in place this mechanism. So you have to pray to Him. You should accept that He is only Swatantra, He is only absolute reality. By His grace only you can get freedom from this bondage. Advaitins say, actually Advaitins also accept bhakti as one of the means for attaining spiritual fitness, which may eventually take you to highest spiritual realization. Karma Yoga also is an equally valid path. Through the practice of unselfish action and certain moral ethical principles, what happens is our mind becomes completely cleansed of all the dirt and filth, all wrong samskaras, negative samskaras, all obstructions. And then what happens is we are able to attain the purity of mind called Chitta Suddhi. And once you attain Chitta Suddhi, purity of mind, you become a mukta, you become a jnani, jnana prati, and lead to moksha, liberation. So, but remember, Madhvacharya says this bhakti alone, complete submission to God, complete acceptance that God alone is the only reality. That admission, and then praying for God's grace, according to Ramanuja Prapatti, that alone can take you to the highest spiritual destination. Advaita says, if you do your actions with a sense of inner purity, without any selfish desire, then all the previous negative samskaras will be neutralized and new positive samskaras will be generated, And this newly accumulated positive samskaras which can help you to take your mind to highest level of purity, and then jnana prati and moksha. So remember, Advaita does not exclude bhakti or devotion, praying to God, puja, confession, whatever it is. Advaita accepts that, but Advaita also tells you that when you worship your God, you should also take care of your actions. You cannot just worship your God as you understand and then hate everyone else. So that is the uniqueness of Advaitic morality. You don't have the luxury of pleasing your God and being always on the good books of your God, and then you do everything possible to harm other people. That luxury does not exist in Advaita. If you pray to your God, the godliness should be expressed in your action, your thought and deed. That's why Chitta Suddhi is very important. The word Chitta Suddhi, Bhashyakara uses the word. That is the universality of Advaita. So often, you find even many of the polemical writers, they were very peaceful people. They never indulged any kind of physical violence. But whatever they could do with their words, they did. Advaitins cannot even do that. Bhashyakara says in the Gaudapadakariga, in the Bhashya, Susiddhanta Vyavasthasu Dvaitino Nischida Dridham Parasparam Viruddhyanti Taihi Ayam Na Viruddhyate. Non-Advaitins, so of course in this particular Kariga, verse in the Gaudapadakariga, it is written in 6th century AD, before Shankaracharya, before Madhvacharya. It was almost 600 years before Madhvacharya's birth. So the word Dvaitin is used in this verse. Here it is not Madhva system that is implied, it is Sankhya system that is implied. So in all the pre-Shankarite writings, wherever you find the word Dvaita is used, that implies any school of philosophy which accepts more than one absolute ontological reality, So in this says, this Advaita has no quarrel with anyone. Asmadiyoyam vaidiko dharma na viruddhati. Atma ananyatvad, Bhashyakara says. We cannot quarrel with anyone because everyone is non-different, non-distinct from ourselves. In fact, in the Bhashya there are also, see, if you hit your head with your own hand, you feel the pain. So Advaitin just cannot quarrel with anyone. But in Dvaita tradition, that possibility is there. You can love your God and you can hate those who don't worship that God in your own way or worship differently. You don't accept him. You condemn Nitya Naraga Siddhanta, mind. Those who are going to live eternally in hell. So this is the moral or ethical greatness of Advaita as a system of philosophy. Now, coming to avidya, because avidya is the subject that Jayatirtha discusses in the paragraph that I just recited, that I quoted from Nyaya Sudha. It's a very famous and very important work, very significant work in the post-Madhva period. Now, Ramanuja also raises similar problems. So that will make us understand the true nature of Advaita. I mentioned this. Ramanuja raises 7 Purvapakshas, Mahapurvapaksha in the Sribhashya. Vedanta Sangraha and other books also deal with this. 7 doctrines of untenables. Sapta Vidha Anubhavattivada. The doctrine of 7 untenables. And these are Asraya Anubhavatti, Tirodhana Anubhavatti, Swarupa Anubhavati, then Anivachiniyatva Anubhavati, then Pramana Anubhavati, and then Nivartaka Anubhavati and Nivritti Anubhavati. It's 7. In Sanskrit it may sound a bit complicated, but very simple. So, what Ramanuja says, because Madhva also accepts some of these principles. That's why it is relevant here. Now, with regard to avidya, maya, etc., Ramanuja says, first objection is asraya. So, I shall make it clear. Asraya means locus. Avidya means that indescribable, that non-definable power by which we are not allowed, we are kept away from realizing our own Swarupa, our own true nature. So Ramanuja raises this question. Now, what is the locus of this avidya? There are two fundamental, 3 schools are there: Bhamati, Vivarana and Vartika Prasthanas. But Bhamati Prasthana and Vivarana Prasthana are two different. According to Bhamati school, Jiva is the Asraya locus of avidya. According to Vivarana school, Brahman is the locus of avidya. So, he says, if Brahman is the locus of avidya, then a Brahman cannot be pure. Jiva is locus of avidya, then Jiva Brahmaikya. Jiva Brahmaivana Parakha. So, avidya is residing in either of this. That will make Brahman polluted. So, the very idea of avidya is untenable. Again, tirodhana, concealment. So, what is actually concealing our true nature? What really stands in the way of our realizing our true nature? It's a simple question. You find that even among the ordinary debates involving agnostics and atheists, they will say, God is so kind, and then why there is so much of, there is the COVID-19, there is the war, there is the genocide, terrible things happening all over the world, and God is sitting there, He is compassionate, He is happy, He is very all-merciful, and then all these terrible things are happening. Either God is a kind-hearted person, but not as efficient as we imagine. Or He is very efficient, but He is not a very compassionate person. So all this, It's like the Advaitins also, Vishtadvaitins also ask this question. What is the concealing agent? What is that which conceals? And if the absolute reality can be concealed by Maya, then how can you call it the absolute reality? And then what is this avidya? Whether it is real or unreal. If it is real in the absolute sense, then it cannot go away. Avidya will be always there, so you cannot get any liberation. If it is unreal, then there is no point of worrying about it. Here also we should remember simple point in Advaita. See, Advaitins, as I mentioned earlier, Advaitins talk about the absolute reality, which is Paramarthika, which transcends time, space and causation, which is the eternal, unchanging reality. And everything that we experience in the empirical world is not unreal in the absolute sense, but only relative in the absolute sense, because they change. That aspect is not fully understood or recognized or accepted by non-Advaitins. They will tell you, you either call it real or unreal. In Advaita, there is Sadasat Vilakshana. Sometimes they say, Anirvachaniya. Sadasatta Anadhikarnatvam va Mithyatvam. This is a definition of Mithyatvam given by Padmapada in Panchapadika. So, avidya or maya or mithya is neither real nor unreal. So, it is anirvachaniya. It is beyond definition. If you define, you should say this is, or if you say this is not. That's one way of defining. But Advaitins say this is not, because it is not eternal. At the same time, you cannot say that this is non-existent because we experience it till we get the supreme spiritual realization. It is something that we have to accept as existing before we get the knowledge of Brahman. So it is not totally unreal. But when we get knowledge of Brahman, it goes away. So it is not real in the absolute sense. Now, that definition of the absolute reality is not accepted and not acceptable to either Ramanuja or Madhvacharya. So they always use the word, anidvajaniyatvam. You either say it is real. Why do you say it is neither real nor unreal? You say either. You can also define. Why not call it both real and unreal? You say either real or unreal. But Advaitins say it is neither real nor unreal. You can say either it is both real and also unreal. But Advaita defines it as it is neither real nor unreal. Sadasat vilakshana. So it is not acceptable to Madhvacharya. Again, Madhva and Ramanuja also, they also pramana anupapatti, means there is no real epistemological support for avidya or maya. Pratyaksha anumana, direct perception, inference, comparison, verbal testimony, presumption and negation. None of these tools of epistemology can prove the reality of avidya, because it is something that we feel is existing, but when we realize the supreme truth, then you understand it is not existing. Again, the old example can be taken. You mistake a piece of mother of pearl naked for a piece of silver. And once you realize it, then you understand it is not silver, it is only mother of pearl. So, there is something like, which is similar to silver, but not really it's silver, it's not silver. So the wrong notion can create the wrong impression, because you have seen silver somewhere, and what you see in front of you, it looks like silver. The nacre is not totally non-existent, because you cannot superimpose something which is totally non-existent. So that's why normal pramanas cannot prove or disprove. So it is sarva pramana avati, it is called. Again, nivartaka anupavatti. So you said avidya is anadi. And then if it is anadi, then it cannot go away somewhere because it should be ananta. So Brahmajnanam will not happen because avidya cannot be removed. So Brahmajnanam cannot come because Brahmajnanam cannot remove avidya. So all these arguments are there. So these are all simple points. You have to remember that Madhvacharya himself is not able to fully understand that basic principle that Advaita is pure common sense. Advaita cannot be proved or disproved through pramanas, through epistemology, through logic, because it is something related to our own spiritual evolution. When you mistake a nacre, a mother of pearl, for a piece of silver, and when you realize it is not silver, then the wrong notion that it is a silver is gone. It's an inner experience, and you don't mistake it any longer for a silver. When you bring light, you realize it is a piece of rope. So, again, it is a matter of inner experience. It is not logical conviction. It's inner experience. Then you are ready to take the piece of rope, put in your neck. You know it is not snake because you know it. It's a matter of inner experience. Again, but Madhvacharya has got some interesting statements here. He says, And what he says is either real or unreal. The unreal also can be proved by pramanas because anupalabdhi. Negation also is one of the pramanas. Or pratyaksha anumana upamana is real. So whatever is perceived, the empirical world, all these empirical entities which we experience, which we can see, which we can directly perceive through pratyaksha pramana, and you say it doesn't exist. So Madhvacharya says it is actually, there are statements, it is like daylight robbery. Negation of the empirical world is a daylight robbery. Again, you have to remember Shankaracharya Dvaita does not reject the empirical world. So you can always remember there is a great confusion and misunderstanding with regard to what Advaitins mean by the word Vyavaharika. It's an important thing to remember. So Madhvacharya says it's a daylight robbery. So what is established by perception cannot be repudiated by inference. And he says, you are using inference. You see this world, you climb a tree, and then you say the tree doesn't exist, you did not climb the tree. What you saw the tree, that is pratyaksha, direct perception. After you climb the tree, you may pluck some mango, and then you say, there was no tree, you didn't climb the mango. What Advaitins are telling you is this: the tree will not be there all the time, and you won't be climbing the tree all the time because the tree will not be there. That's what Advaitins say. So the point is that the real implication of Advaita is often missed either deliberately or otherwise by many of the non-Advaitins. Again, Advaitins, for example, the appearance, for example, Shukti appearance called, this nature is called Shukti. Shukti is like a mother of pearl. You may some shells of some creatures that you see in the seashore, very similar to silver. So the appearance of this Shukti nature as silver is considered to be a false appearance because it is sublated by a stronger perception, pratyaksha. Why you take it and then you find it is not silver, it is only Shukti, it is only a mother of pearl, it is only nature. So it is not by inference that you realize this. If you bring light, then you find there is what you earlier mistook to be a snake, and you take it in your hand, it is a piece of rope. So it is pratyaksha, direct perception. So he says, whatever is directly perceived cannot be negated through inference. Again, the idea that the world is not absolutely real is an inferential cognition according to Madhva. No, it is actually a matter of our own inner experience. That's a point. Advaita is called, it is Anubhavaika Vedya. Advaitic experience is something to be experienced, it is not something to be proved. So Advaita is actually all about our own spiritual journey. Logically, it's very important to remember, logically you cannot really reach the highest level of Advaitic experience. So even the Chandu, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, you find there is an interesting dialogue between Yajnavalkya and Gargi. Gargi goes on arguing, and at some point Gargi crosses the boundary because leaving behind the realm of scriptures and logical arguments, she enters the realm of inner spiritual experience. But she is trying to use logic to prove something which cannot be proved through logic. So Yajnavalkya says, your head will fall off. The meaning is, you are trying to use your brain to understand something for which brain is not an adequate tool or instrument. So that's a metaphoric statement, it is only a way of putting things. So anyway, uh, so Madhvacharya, again, he has absolutely no patience to understand what Advaitins call Sadasat Vilakshanatva, means something which is different from real and unreal. So this Maya is real and neither real nor unreal. You see, either call is real or unreal. What is real, what is different from real and unreal is something that we assume to be real till we are corrected by our own spiritual evolution. Again, our own spiritual evolution, we are corrected. From Vyavaharika to Paramarthika is not a journey in logic, it's a journey in our spiritual experience. It's an important point to remember. That is true in Christian tradition, mystical tradition. What's the difference between the greatest logician, somebody like Aquinas or Augustine, and a great mystic like Saint Teresa of Avila, who speaks from a different perspective, from a higher angle? So there is a limit beyond which logic cannot go. That's why from Vyavaharika to Paramarthika, from empirical to the absolute, it is not a journey in logic, it's a journey in our own inner spiritual experience. And that spiritual experience cannot be logically proved or disproved. Its language is silence. That's why Bhashagara says, Anubhavaika Vidya, Advaita, Advaitic truth can only be experienced through experience and not through epistemology, sarva pramanavati, or not through any of the verbalization methods. It is in a pancha shabda pravritti nisheta, beyond all verbalizations. Now we can have interaction. You are most welcome to ask questions. I think we have time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
There is a hand up from Shay.
Yeah.
Hello, Swami.
Yeah.
First of all, happy Guru Purnima.
Thank you. Thank you.
And my question is about, I guess, Sri Ramakrishna and his worship of Divine Mother, and maybe feeling that, there are some Advaitin authors that tried to say that the world was unreal, right? Or there's Madhvacharya that was saying that God is sort of separate from the world. But it seems that maybe if you are a worshiper of Divine Mother, you wouldn't hold that the world is unreal, because that's sort of creation, right? And that's her creation. And saying it's unreal is sort of maybe when you worship Divine Mother, who is Maya, who is creation and the creator, that maybe Sri Ramakrishna had a different view, right? Because he didn't say that the world was unreal. He said that Brahman's real, the world is real. So could you speak a bit about Sri Ramakrishna's view?
Yeah. Sri Ramakrishna's Advaita teacher was Totapuri, who was a monk of one of the 10 monastic orders founded by Shankaracharya. When he first came to Dakshineshwar, the temple where Sri Ramakrishna was living, Sri Ramakrishna was not very enthusiastic. I mean, he was not against, but he had some reservations. Then he went to Mother temple and he prayed. He got an inner voice from Mother telling him, he has come to teach you, go and learn. And then he underwent training under Totapuri in Advaitic spiritual sadhana, spiritual disciplines. And at some point, he could not go beyond the realm of personal God. He was practicing devotional disciplines and looking upon Mother as the highest concept of the divine. And he could not go beyond the personal aspect. And then Totapuri went round and took a small piece of glass and pierced in his forehead. And as Sri Ramakrishna meditated upon that point, immediately Sri Ramakrishna transcended the Mother's form. Now remember, one point, remember, I think I mentioned this earlier, it's very important that you raise this question, just to get relevance. The relevance is just been going on for the last 200 years. People still misunderstand Shankara. That's this matter. The point is, so when Sri Ramakrishna finally transcended the personal form of Divine Mother, he was not rejecting Divine Mother, he was going beyond the Divine Mother. Divine Mother herself was leading him beyond her personal dimension. Remember, towards her own impersonal dimension. So remember this, the absolute reality is neither impersonal nor personal. It cannot be defined this way or that way. But in Advaita, one without a second, you find one without a second. That's the real meaning, one Advaita, one without a second. Why it's emphasized one without a second? If you just use one, there's a possibility of another one. So the so-called second also is non-different, non-distinct from the one. So when you reach Advaitic experience, you are not rejecting, you are not going from something lower to higher. You are actually going to a state which includes God with form, which includes Divine Mother. But Divine Mother's own transpersonal dimension. Divine Mother's own transpersonal dimension, transcendent dimension. That is Advaita. So I mentioned this earlier. Shankaracharya, who wrote all these commentaries, he will argue with you for days, but then next day he will write a most wonderful devotional poem on Divine Mother. Remember. That's a very important. Now the point is, I tell you, there is another cultural reason why there is a lot of misunderstanding. Because sometimes people believe that if they believe in something, they should disbelieve in everything else. But that's not true with Advaita. It is true with regard to all anthropomorphic religions. Remember, one reason why Vivekananda became an overnight celebrity, I tell you, if you look at Vivekananda, what he said in the first Chicago address was absolutely a new revolutionary radical statement for the Western scholars. Here is a man who tells you that there is a higher realm, higher experience of the spiritual journey where you accept all. You don't condemn anyone. You don't say your road is wrong, your religion is wrong. How can there be a religion which accepts all? Recently, if you look at around you, find people cannot really understand if you tell them, I am right, you're also right, you are not wrong. How can both of us be right? This cannot be true in empirical sciences, mathematics, physics, no. But in spiritual life, you cannot employ this principle of mathematics and logic. If you're right, this will mean somebody else is wrong. Somebody else is approaching your destination, your goal from another perspective. It was this the Swami Vivekananda stated in Chicago. If Vivekananda says that today, it will be something that everyone knows. The danger today is, many people have read Vivekananda, they are trying to accommodate Vivekananda philosophy within their fanatical system. The great danger is happening today. So people read Advaitic books and then they will say their own anthropomorphic religion is pure Advaita. So fanaticism, even in the name of Advaita, is wrong. True Advaita is not a fanatical idea. Now what happens today is, and if you read books, many books and many statements from different religious traditions, they will tell you the teachings of their particular religion, it contains the whole truth. And then, because it is the ultimate, the last, complete, no more addition for God's intelligence, God's work. But Advaita says, Spiritual journey starts not by reading a book, but in our own heart. Spiritual journey begins in our hearts, not in the library, not in the book that you buy from a library or buy a bookstore, or you believe in something making a statement. It begins in our heart, in our life. And when you look at Advaita as a spiritual journey and not as a doctrinal journey, not a journey in the world of dogmas and doctrines, but a journey in our own higher and higher spiritual experience, higher and higher comprehension of the same absolute reality, then there is no problem. Sri Ramakrishna was becoming an Advaitin without ceasing to be a Dvaitin. Let's remember this important point. Sri Ramakrishna was a Dvaitin before Totapuri came. You can say, if you want, you can argue. May not be correct, may be correct. You can argue. But after Totapuri came along and taught him, Sri Ramakrishna continued to be a Dvaitin so far as everyday ritual is concerned, but an Advaitin reality. So Advaitin can be a very good Dvaitin. An Advaitin alone can be a real Dvaitin. Remember. I tell you, I have seen many great spiritual people in our own congregation who got a more spiritual, a more complete, a more comprehensive understanding of their own tradition when they looked upon their own tradition from an Advaitic perspective. So Advaita doesn't reject anyone. That's why it is a journey in spiritual life, not a journey in logic or epistemology. On the other hand, if you think that your idea of God is supreme, nothing else, you feel insecure. Somebody may come and point at a more compassionate God, a more muscular God, a more smiling God. Your God is a bit cruel. There's a God who looks more agreeable. But you cannot threaten Advaitin with that. It's an important point. This idea Vivekananda put in a very simple language. Not that all the 4,000 people listening to Vivekananda understood what you are saying, but the universal urge of every noble human being for something more universal, for something more all-accommodating. That is what we found in Chicago in 1893, September 11, when these 4,000 people listening to Vivekananda got up and clapped their hands. Why? Because not that they understood Vivekananda's Advaita, but even within them there is the urge for something universal, something Advaitic. And this urge is part of our spiritual mechanism within. That's what happened to Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna became an Advaitin without ceasing to be a Dvaitin. Shankaracharya was a Dvaitin. Whenever he went to a temple, he prayed. And he wrote his books on Advaitin. Again he went to the temple next day again. He was a Dvaitin. So you cannot say you are Lutheran and a Catholic. If you are a Lutheran, you cannot be Catholic. You remember? That kind of demarcation doesn't exist in the life of great men like Shankaracharya or Sri Ramakrishna. Madhvacharya had his own problems. That is his problem, not the problem of Advaita. Okay, thank you for the question.
Thank you, Shay.
Yeah.
Sri Ram, you're next.
Yeah.
Sri Ram? Sri Ram, I see you've unmuted yourself, but we can't hear you. Let's hold off then and move to David.
Yeah.
Hello, Swami.
Yeah.
My question is what is the difference in that between the yearning in Advaita Marga and the yearning in Bhakti? like they both. If I remember right, that Shankara says that one needs great longing. But how would one describe the difference in the longing within the Dvaita Marga and Advaita?
Shankaracharya defines bhakti. Suswarupānusandhānam bhakti aparirikhu. Suswarupānusandhānam. Atmarupānusandhānam. He uses the word in Vivekachudamani. You see, going in search of our own true nature, going in search of our own true Atman, this is bhakti, this is devotion. This is what Shankaracharya defines it. Now, in reality, this bhakti definition of devotion is different from the definitions of bhakti either in the traditional bhakti literature. Narada's, Satvasmin Parama Prema Rupa, the bhakti is defined as intense love, intense devotion, intense dedication and devotion towards one's own God ideal. This is how it defined in mainstream bhakti literature. But in an Advaitin's book like Vivekachudamani, Shankaracharya defines bhakti as following the path of inquiry into our own true nature, into Atman. Atmarupānusandhānam, Suswarupānusandhānam, etc. So it was used here. So anyway, the point is, Shankaracharya makes it very clear in the 13th chapter of Gita, 10th or 11th verse. So there are slight additions. Maicha ananya yogena bhaktira vibhijarini vivikta desha sevittum anabhirjana samsadi. This is a verse. Most probably the 13th chapter, 10th or 11th verse. Maicha ananya yogena. So if you want to look at the book, the in-text with M-A-Y-I, if you write English. Maicha ananya. What it means is, what is unwavering devotion? That is being defined in this verse. Unwavering devotion in the commentary Bhashyakara says, he says ananya yogena bhajanam bhakti, the devotion without any diversion from your own chosen ideal is pure, unwavering, suddha, nirmala, etc. Then he says Satya-jnanam, this higher bhakti, pure bhakti, unwavering devotion to your own chosen ideal, that is knowledge also, that is Advaitic knowledge also. Now, at the highest experience level, bhakti and jnana, Advaita and bhakti are the same. At the highest experience level. Because even you are a true devotee, you feel a kind of intimacy with your God ideal. The intimacy. People don't feel intimacy. They think it's a blasphemy to feel intimacy. Because their God ideal, they don't want to approach their God because he's not a very pleasant looking person. Huge muscular man with a huge stick or maybe much worse weapons in his hand. You don't want to be very close to him. That's why people who constantly pray to such a God, if such a God comes and takes an apartment next to you, you would like to rather you go out and find another place to stay. So here, and you find this, and if you read the autobiographical writings of Saint Teresa of Avila, or the Way of a Pilgrim, the Russian Orthodox, great mystical work. So the intimacy, the close proximity with Jesus, whether the pilgrim in the Way of a Pilgrim, or Saint Teresa of Avila, the close intimacy they felt with Jesus or the God idea, that makes them happy, contented. And they want to see, they were looking at the whole world as a beautiful, wonderful place for celebration. Because their idea of God is an all-compassionate, blessed being. So, they want this intimacy. It's an important point. When this intimacy is pushed to the extreme limit, even the slightest demarcation disappears. that oneness becoming one with it. That is Advaita. That's why Shankaracharya says the highest knowledge and the highest bhakti are the same. Unfortunately, neither Ramanuja nor Madhva had got an opportunity to study closely this. Look at this. Look, this Shankaracharya statement. I told you many times, the most moving devotional poetry ever penned by anyone in Sanskrit or in Indian tradition, Indian language, is by Shankara. And is accused of turning a blind eye to bhakti. Just imagine. Just imagine. So that's an important point. See, Madhvacharya was worshipping Vishnu, but he could not write anything comparable to Vishnu Sahasranama Bhashyam. You know, the Vishnu Sahasranama means 1000 holy names of Vishnu. And Shankaracharya wrote a big, wonderful commentary on it. Vishnu Shatpadi. And poor Madhvacharya was saying that my God is Vishnu and I am fighting with Shankara. The same Shankaracharya was busy writing a commentary on Vishnu Sahasranama. Just imagine. And Vishnu Shatpadi. The great work on the 1000 names of Vishnu. So what he means to say is Advaita and Advaitic Bhakti is the purest Bhakti. Advaita means the slightest demarcation also disappears. At the experience level, you can see this in the exclamations of the great pilgrim in the way of a pilgrim, or in the writings of Saint Teresa of Avila. She constantly feels like she's talking to Jesus, is hearing Jesus' words, voices. Actually, from a spiritual perspective, it is an indication of close proximity with a God whom she did not fear. That is a very important point, remember. If you want to enjoy close proximity with God, the God should have at least a pleasant form, not a very uncompromising form. You don't have any fear to be near with him. So that's the point. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Swami, one thing is it necessary? I remember Swami Nitya Srupananda was visiting and got into an argument with a local religious professor and said that you need a Dvaita to accept all religions, that otherwise you'll be parochial and not accept all religions, and that minister got very upset with Nitya Srupananda. Are dualists, like, what is that phrase? They always argue amongst themselves. Can a dualist not ever really accept other religions, other gods?
Let me see if I heard you correctly. You said Swami Nitya Swarupananda had an argument with his professor. What did the professor ask him to do?
So the professor was a Christian, a conservative Christian professor near the temple. I don't know if you remember seeing the Western Seminary.
Yeah.
And Swami Seshananda actually got very upset with Mr. Shupananda because that professor never wanted to talk to Seshananda anymore. But he said, Mr. Shupananda said, without a Dvaita, you become a bigot and you only accept your own God.
Yeah, actually
is that true?
It is a fact. It's a fact. Absolutely it's a fact. Without some degree of Advaita, there's every chance that you can become a fanatic. So even if suppose you are worshipping, praying every day, you are reading your book every day, you lead a good life, but then you say all others are worshipping the wrong God. Suppose you find your best friend and then your best friend neighbors, you tell him, but you are worshipping the devil. I actually was walking in this city of San Francisco. Somebody long ago asked me, Swami, but are you not afraid of the devil? He said, who is devil? Devil is a person who inspires you to be a bad human being. When you hate, when you have no compassion, when you're cruel, when you're monstrous, that is a sign of devilry. When you're compassionate, when you're humane, when you're merciful and kind, that is godliness. So this is a very important point to remember. What people will, they believe in, that's a problem with all schools of dualism. Somehow you begin to believe that you can please your God, and you can do lot of terrible things to everyone else who believe in the same God but in a different way. But the question asks, if I am a devotee of God, how can I do any harm to other living beings who are also creation of the same God whom I worship in my temple? So, real belief in spirituality makes you a better human being. I often mention to you, I have found something very interesting. Many of the agnostics, they're very noble, very wonderful, very broad-minded, very rational people. They may not go to a church or a temple, but they will never do any harm to anyone. Only they will tell you God doesn't exist, doesn't matter. But they live a good life. And God will have no problem with them. On the other hand, you pray to your God, you read a book, and then you hate everyone else. But that's a bad advertisement to the God whom you claim you're worshipping. See, I think God will feel very much embarrassed if you if you swear in His name and you do terrible things. Then people will think, oh, he's taking my name and he's doing all these terrible things. So people may think, I'm the one who is making him do all the terrible things. It's not a good, God has no reason to feel pleased with such devotees. There's a great truth in what Swami Nityaswarupanji said. Because Nityaswarupanji was not living in the US, so he did not feel the need to use the politically correct language, So what he said is, there is always a possibility that a dualist in any tradition may be a bit fanatical. And fanaticism will give you permission to do terrible things to somebody who worships the same God whom you are worshipping in a different way. That's the problem. Not necessarily, but not physically, but in verbally they may practice some degree of fanaticism. That's obstinacy. That's true. Okay, thank you. Very, very important question. Actually, I wish it's very unfortunate that many of the noble-hearted, broad-minded agnostics in Western world, they have no understanding of Advaita. Shankaracharya would have absolutely no problem with them. Absolutely no problem. You don't worship any God, he would have told them. You don't read any book, just live a good life. If you don't want, I can guarantee you will progress in spiritual life. Shankaracharya will tell them. But Madhvacharya will say, no, you should pray to Vishnu. Ramanuja, you should pray to Ramayana, Narayana, Vishnu Narayana. Shankaracharya will say, no, be a good human being. Karmanishthaya chitta suddhidvarena pushartha hedutta. Means, if you practice karmanishta, you do your duty with a sense of sanctity and sacredness, your mind becomes pure. For that, you don't require God's permission. So that is the magic of Advaita. Okay, thank you for the question.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So we should conclude now.
I think so. Sriram, are you there with a question? Your hand is
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Sriram. Yeah.
You mentioned in today's lecture that Brahman is not, Maya's locus is not Brahman. But in the Tattwamayanandaji it says Brahmashraya, Tattva Rajas Tamot.
So, okay. I'll tell you. So, there are different views in Vedanta with regard to the locus of avidya. According to Bhamadi school, according Bhamadi school, Jiva is the locus of avidya. According to Vivarna school, Brahman is the locus of avidya. The Tattva belongs to the Vivarna school, which is a school mostly followed in South India. That is a more popular school, Vivarna school. Vivarna school is a school that was it was expounded by Prakasha Mayedi, who wrote a well-known book. It's called Panchapadika Vivaranam. Vivaranam means elaborate exposition of Panchapadika which is a book written by Padmapada, one of the disciples of Shankaracharya. So the bigger number, I mean, Bhamadi school is less popular than Vivarna school. According to Vivarna school, Brahman is the Asraya locus. According to Bhamadi school, Jiva is the Asraya. These are two different schools. Vartika school also eventually agrees with Vivarna school. So that's why we mention only two schools. Vartika school was founded by Sureshwaracharya, who wrote the Brihadaranya Upanishad Bhashya Vartikam. It's clear to you? Okay, thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Namaskar, namaskar.